Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new podcast called Shad and the Resman. I am one of your hosts, Black Shad 56. And
And
he,
I am Resman.
aka DC Resman, on
Yeah.
Discord and every other, almost everything. So, this is a new podcast that we wanted to go ahead and do just to get some things off, not necessarily off our chest, but just talk about things that we don't really hear on a lot of other podcasts or things that we have different opinions on. So, Reese Man, would you like to tell our lovely audience what our first episode is about?
We're going to be talking about pets, anything related to pets, really. Pet care, pet food. I mean, me and Shad live in different households, so obviously we have some different experiences with how we take care of our loved ones and our pets.
Yes, how we
why?
obviously take care of our
Yeah, of
loved ones.
course. Yes, of course. We bestow
Oh,
a lot of mercy on them and
yes.
grace.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Now, Shad, I know that you live in an apartment and I live in a
Yes.
house. So
Yes, you
tell
do.
me what your experiences are with taking care of your pets.
Well, what it originally was is our first dog that my fiance and I got together we got an older dog. So we got older dogs. I can't necessarily say anything as far as puppies, just because we knew going into it that getting an older dog for your first personal dog by yourself is something that is a little bit easier on you because they typically tend to be self sufficient for the most part. So when we got her, we weren't living together at that point. Her name is Rosie, and I actually have my own little thing. I don't know if I'm gonna put it on the corner here or not. But if you know me on Discord, or if you've ever seen anything that I will eventually be uploading as far as my own personal stuff on YouTube, um, I will have like all of my pets in drawing form. Her name is Rosie. She is an Australian Red Heeler Chow Chow mix. She's about coming up on 10, I believe, and we more or less got her whenever my fiance was not my fiance, obviously, and she was living in a one-bedroom apartment by herself. So with one dog, and for those that don't know, red healers, they're a medium-sized dog. I would say like maybe not two times, but maybe like one scale smaller than a German Shepherd, because German Shepherds tend to be pretty tall. Um, so she's relatively small. She's an older girl. She doesn't really do all that much. She doesn't run around or anything. So long as you feed her, give her some pets every now and then, and take her outside, she's okay. She's not going to complain too much. And then we ended up, whenever we moved in together, I think it was beginning of this year, so it would have been around January. We ended up getting um, we ended up getting another dog. We got our German Shepherd, Diego. Now he is 7, and what is going on with him is he is a German Shepherd, so obviously some he has he has some different needs, obviously, as far as like getting rid of energy and everything else. So he can get the zoomies every now and then. He'll run around the apartment, but it's very rare. It's usually whenever we rile him up, or if it's from a walk that he didn't feel like he got enough energy out of. So it's not too bad as far as like raising those two dogs. We when we moved in together, we got a 2-bedroom apartment. So that's actually technically what this room is. This is our secondary bedroom. We use it as an office space. I have my setup over here on towards the door. She has her setup over here. So from that, it's also kind of like a loose storage. We do have this pull-out couch over here for any guests that come over, or if we're gonna have people just need a place to sit down for a little bit, and the couch is taken outside in the living room, then perfect right there, right? So this is, it's not hard with two dogs. Now, of course, if we got another dog that wasn't small, it'd be completely insane. Hell, I think even with a small dog, it would be insane. So the closest we have to that is one of my first pets whenever I moved out. If you can't tell by the terrarium, and I get it, it's going to be a little blurry. He's back there. His name is Alduin. He is my bearded dragon. He is the first animal I ever purchased whenever I moved out of my parents' house. So I've had him for about 2 years now, and that scaly bastard, I swear to God, I love him to death. Don't get me wrong. He's somewhat of a pain in the ass. Like, bearded dragons are easy to take care of. Don't get me wrong. They're very very easy. It's just it's different for a person that was growing up being around cats and dogs and hell even hamsters or guinea pigs. It's different with a bearded dragon because they don't really affection. They don't show affection. They just kind of crawl around you. They're used to you, if that makes sense. Uh,
Yeah, they get
so
comfortable with you,
they get
basically.
comfortable with you exactly,
Yeah, and
but
that's
they
as
don't
far as they'll
remember you,
take it.
pretty much, and they don't
Okay.
really remember you. And like they don't recognize faces; they recognize scents, which essentially is what dogs do. But dogs also recognize faces as well. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean it's interesting in an apartment. Luckily, this apartment actually has a lot of walking places. They even have a dog park that's not too far from us. So from that, it's just uh, it's it's interesting. If you're not used to having a smaller place, obviously most people I know didn't grow up in apartments. I know plenty of people that have, and that's fine. But from this, it's completely interesting. Obviously, we don't plan on staying in the apartment for very long. After the wedding, I believe we're probably going to put some money on a down payment or something along those lines for a house. So I think with a house, the two dogs will have a lot more space. Of course, I'll have a more dedicated area to do this or to do any streaming of any sorts.
Yeah.
That I feel like that's the main goal, right? To have like at least, even if we have a 2 3 bedroom house, we can at least have oh hey, that room's my recording area, that's your office, and then we have the bedroom, that kind of thing. Or if kids get into the picture, that office can go into the stream room, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So that is kind of the plan, if you so will. But it is interesting. As far as like reprimanding them or anything along those lines, we don't really do that. We just kind of talk, not aggressive, but like we kind of talk down to them, if that makes sense. Um, and of course, right now we're dealing with a whole different thing. I've never had a German Shepherd in my life, from what I remember. I always wanted one, but he is now shedding because he's getting rid of his winter coat. And oh my god, I mean, you've seen pictures of his shedding, and like that's just with me assisting it. I did a little bit more
It's
today.
really
It
bad.
was a big. It was about a pile about this big, maybe about this tall. I mean, it's bad. So
Yeah.
and I mean, I think my sister who has had German shepherds still has some. I think she said like if she doesn't comb them every day, it's noticeable, or not every day, every other day, it gets
Yeah.
noticeable.
Yeah.
Now you live in a house. I think I've only seen one of your dogs. I don't think you have any more, but I know you have a shitload of cats.
Yeah. We have a My parents has three cats and a dog. One is the cat that we had for the longest time. I actually got her in my freshman sophomore year of high school, and her name is Sammy. You actually met her yesterday.
Yeah,
Uh, I
Sammy.
I
Sammy's interesting.
I call her the queen of the house. She kind of comes in and goes out whenever she wants, but we don't
Yeah.
really let the other cats out. And honestly, Sammy doesn't really get along with the other cats, which is probably why she goes out so much.
Yeah.
But if the other cats weren't there, she would probably been much more. Um, but she's like one of the few cats that will go out and then just bring us a dead rat and just would be like, oh, okay, what did the cat drag in this time, and then like just yesterday, there's like half a rat just on the front door of the of the porch, and it was just you could see its guts. I'm like, bro, like this cat is just this cat's nuts.
Yeah, a little
But
bit. Yeah.
yeah, but I love Sammy. I mean, she's been there for a while. And then then you have Fancy. She's the newest addition to the household. She's been here for about, let's say, 6 months to a year. Kind of
Yeah, give or
forget
take.
when we got uh, Fancy, but Fancy is a um, female cat. She's a lot younger, um, and I'd say she's a pretty chill cat. Sometimes she kind of jumps around and she gets a little jittery. Um, and then from there, we have um, we have Hope. Hope is basically a friend of my father's, who he went to school with back in high school.
Right.
Um, just gifted Hope to us, and Fancy Pants was also another gift from that person. Her name is Glenda, and she used to live down here. Arkansas, and Hope was more of like a I don't think she had a home when she was found. I'm not sure. That sounds weird that I said that. She didn't have
Yeah.
a home before she was found. Like, of course she didn't, but
Yeah.
Hope was more of like a miracle than anything else because my understanding was that Hope was I think trapped somewhere in like a forest or whatever, and Hope was really dehydrated and almost about to die, and
Yeah.
she was saved, and luckily like she was on the brink of death basically. She was just
Right.
about to like just die, and she was saved, and she has really bad eyesight because of that. But
Well, yeah.
eventually, the friend Glenda who gifted us the two cats,
Mhm.
she was moving to Maine, and she didn't want to. She really didn't have the space or capacity to bring those cats with her, so she gifted them to us. And Hope is really chill. It's a male cat. They're basically, I think they're both related.
Mhm.
Um, they play along with each other, but
That's good.
Hope tries to get out every once in a while, and we always have to bring Hope back in. And so I'm like, every time she gets out, like she always crawls up to the door, and we open it up, and boom, she just bolts out. I'm like, oh my god, I have to bring Hope in again. I just don't think she's going to survive out there.
No.
he's
No. Yeah.
he's too short, but I think he thinks of himself as a Chad in a way.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's Winston, who's the dog, and
Yes.
he's a pretty big dog. I think of
I'd
him
say
as
he's on the smaller end of a large scale dog.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
But the biggest, the largest pet that we have so far
Yeah.
in this household, and I think when I think of Winston, I think of Winston Churchill. Kind of goes out, does his own thing, conquers the world. You also got to put him on a leash too. So you just got to be careful about who he invades. That basically describes Winston. So uh, be careful when you let him out in the backyard. He might dig a hole.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Or get
So
himself trapped underneath the little patio you guys got out there.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I always call him Winston Churchill,
Yeah. Winston
just
Churchill. Yeah.
because it just
He
feels
does his
right
own
to me.
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Exactly.
just 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 give him the hat, and
Hat
it
and
all kind of
stogie.
matches up. Yeah.
Yeah. Give him the stogie. You can't
So
do Winston Churchill without the stogies, man.
so
Yeah. Hell, I think
uh,
he actually has a not a brand, but well, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a brand, but there I think he does have a style of cigar called the Churchill, and I think it
yeah,
was named after him because he, in particular, always wanted long cigars because they lasted him longer, or I forget the exact reason, but he always got custom made cigars for that. Like he's like, I want a long, skinny cigar that I can just chomp down on and smoke anytime. And that was so now you have the Churchills, and they're typically a little longer and they're a little skinnier than your typical cigar. I mean, um, obviously for the audience that may or may not exist at this point, anybody that is watching that doesn't know us, I'm kind of not really a cigar connoisseur, I guess is the way to say it, but like I have a very decent interest in cigars. It's not one of my hyper obsessions that would obviously be movies, that kind of aspect of it, but um more or less it is it's I do like cigars. I have been smoking cigars since I was 19. Luckily when I turned 19, was the same day that was the same within like a month. Actually it was the same month that they traded the 18-year-old for tobacco. Like he had to be 18 years old. They traded it to 21. So that was interesting. I kind of, even though they said there was no grandfather laws with it, most cigar shops they respected it because they knew who my dad was. So they're like, ah, you're 19, you're grandfathered in at this point. We know you, and I'm like, all right, cool. So, um, yeah, man, that was a weird tangent, but like with pets, funny enough about cigars with pets or any really type of smoking, except for vaping. I've never seen a pet have an adverse effect to nicotine vaping. Maybe because that's just vapor that's coming out. I have no idea, but not really a big vapor, obviously.
speaking
Cigarettes and
of
cigars, they don't
yeah,
like them. Dogs do not like them. They'll come up to you, they'll sniff it, and then they'll walk off.
speaking of dogs and cigars, I know that there's a famous painting where you have dogs playing poker with
Yeah, it
some
was dogs
cigars.
with human characteristics because it was
Yeah,
based off of the typical.
but
It was not untypical to see men smoking cigarettes and cigars playing poker back in the day. And someone's like, well, what if you put dogs in that situation? And boom, there you go. You know,
Yeah. I'm looking that up right now. Who came up with that one?
I don't
Um,
know off the top of my head, to
I
be
wonder who
perfectly
came up with
honest.
the idea.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Um,
Up with the
yeah,
idea. It says Cassius Marcellus Coolidge
okay.
was the dogs playing poker. That was the artwork that he did,
Yeah,
and
it's a
so he was the one
Coolidge
that came
family.
up with that. It was
Hmm.
a 1903 series of
That makes
16
sense.
oil paintings commissioned by Brown and Bigelow. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah,
I could be
sounds about
to
right. Yeah.
to advertise cigars in a 1910 painting.
Huh.
So
I'll be.
yeah,
So it was a
I know,
cigar
yeah,
advertisement. Huh.
yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
and honestly, I think, I mean, now we're really going tangent. I think that the topic of dogs, resembling men in a way is a pretty. I feel like I think men like to think of themselves as dogs sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, even going arguing, tying it back to Churchill. Churchill was often described as a bulldog. Because
Yeah,
they're very stout. They almost have a permanent frown, and they're no holds bars. I mean, there's a reason they're called bulldogs. Is they were bred to fight, not fight, but herd bulls. That's why their bite force is so
yeah,
harsh. I mean, like and the rolls of skin help them, get up, get back up, and everything. I mean, that's the whole reason they're called bulldogs. Um,
yeah.
you know, there's that
Bulldogs are
element to
really
it.
tough. They're really
Bulldogs are
tough
really
dogs,
tough.
man.
Yeah,
They can take a beating. I think Joe Rogan did a podcast on this. Like
I
he
wouldn't
talked about it
surprise
just
me.
it
He's
was
talked about everything
crazy.
under the sun at this point.
Uh,
He's been doing it
too
well
much.
for what, almost like 8, 10 years or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
insane how long he's been doing it. Like he's been doing a podcast really before podcasts were kind of a thing. I mean, like they were kind of on the up and up on in like what was it 2011 or 2012 or whatever, but really, really, truly, podcast didn't blow up until COVID. Obviously, hell,
yeah.
I mean, even I did a podcast during COVID. I did something called Snowdecast. Love to bring it back, but it's just hard to kind of keep everybody together with it because we did like 4 or 5 people at a time, and to try to like time that out. It's not that we weren't getting to a point where we could make it work. It was just whenever movie news dried up, we didn't really have anything to do, and it also was just kind of a nuisance to try to get everybody together. Whereas with 1 or 2 people, it's not bad. It's actually a lot easier to record. Hell, even with just a 1 or 2 guests with 1 or 2 hosts is not bad. But
Yeah.
it's just like every now and then. But like when it's just 1 and 2 people together, it works a lot better. But
Right.
you know, again, back onto the dog thing. There was another famous person that was he was like likened to a dog. Uh, it was. There's so many people. I just know that Churchill was one of the, um, was one of the original ones, or not the original one,
Yeah.
but like one of the most well known. The live long or keep calm, carry on. That's a Winston Churchill thing. That was propaganda during World War II. Um, that was their thing, and it's just again with dogs. I mean, like the other day I was in here playing a game, and my 2 dogs came in because I had lunch. I had Chick-fil-A, and they were sitting right here at this door, just sitting there looking at me like, "Are you gonna give us something?" It's like, no, because you two are fucking sick, and I don't want you shitting everywhere. It's just. I talk to my dogs like they're humans sometimes, and I mean, I think that's just a normal trait for most people. If you treat
I,
your dog like a family member, I mean, you're gonna talk to them like they're humans or like little kids, that
well,
kind of
there's
element.
there's a reason why they say that dogs are man's best friend, and that's
Oh yeah,
because in a way we can connect the dogs unlike any other animal there is on Earth. And
yeah,
I do think that dogs have sort of this, and I don't know if you want to say maybe it's genetic, or maybe it's just breeding over several hundred thousands of years, where it's
it could
just
be
I do
both.
think I think honestly, at the end of the day, I think they do understand us. There's a degree of understanding that they
Yeah,
have that no other animal has with
well,
us. So
Yeah, and I mean, another one that would be similar to that would be, well, obviously, any type of ape or monkey typically tend to have that agreement as well. Particularly chimps, chimpanzees, and orangutans typically tend to have a very good understanding. Same thing with gorillas.
Yeah,
Horses tend to have a really good understanding with people if they're trained well. If they're not, then there's no connection there. It's like you're hitting a
yeah,
barrier every single time till you break down those barriers. Hence the reason you're supposed to break a horse's spirit in order to make it. And the thing is like once you break the horse's spirit, it's the same thing as like more or less taming a wolf. You have a friend for life at that point. You have no greater friend. And I mean, with wolves, that's the main thing. You know, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, I would say it was probably around the Ice Age, maybe a little bit before that. Dogs, realized like, oh, these humans, they have fire, they have warmth, they have meat. Maybe if I kind of sit with them and everything, we can kind of
yeah.
harbor in a deal. And I think humans thought the same thing. They're like, okay, look, you can stay here, you can protect me, I will feed you. But you're more or less you're with me, and
Right.
the thing, I think there are people that do raise wolves, and you should never get a male wolf. If you're gonna get a wolf, you have to get a female. And people would ask why. It's like they're like dogs, right? It's like no, a male wolf, whenever it comes to age, it is going to be constantly challenging you. There will be points where it will try to kill you. That's just how the pack works. Whereas with a female wolf, if you tame that wolf, it's not like a dog. You can't just leave it wherever for 8 hours. Like, oh hey, I'm going to work. Blah blah blah. No, that dog's coming with you, no matter what. It's getting out and it's coming with you.
Yeah,
And that's just one of the scary parts of it, or not scary, but that's kind of like one of the heartwarming parts about it. But it's that pack mentality, and dogs still have that, in my opinion. They do. I think ultimately the like I said, I think they have that mentality of the pack. That's why it takes a little while for dogs to get used to your schedule, used to your. I mean, like we got Diego in January, and he's just now starting to get comfortable with us because we keep a pretty tight schedule, so that helps. There are certain dogs that they need schedule, like they need to pick up on it, and like German shepherds are wicked smart. They will outsmart you. That's why you got to constantly keep them active, because if you don't, I mean, they're gonna turn your whole household into a fucking tug of war place, and or they're gonna tear it apart. And it's just, yeah, they need constant stimulation. It's like a ADHD kid on crack. It's interesting.
yeah.
um, and what's crazy is Diego's terrified. He is the biggest baby I have ever seen. Like if you do this, like let's say I got up really quickly to like scratch my head, and he was right there next to my hand, he would do this. Like that's what Diego would do.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude,
There, there
you
might be
don't know.
history with that though. There might be
Yeah,
history with that.
that's what Hannah and I suspect, is that it probably is. He was an abused dog.
Yeah,
So
that explains
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Honestly, yeah, my dog, uh, the dog my parents have, it's just crazy.
yeah. Winston's
Like
just
that's
nuts.
it.
But
It's just
granted, he's a
energetic.
puppy. He's a
Yeah,
puppy. Like he's like 2 or 3 years old.
I forget how, but he is pretty
Yeah,
young for. I
yeah.
think he's still got time. I think he's got some size for left in him, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Some growing to do. But yeah, my dog is just he doesn't care. I could wrestle with him. I can
Oh
also.
yeah,
This is gonna sound bad. Sometimes I put him in a chokehold and I say tap out. I don't choke him legitimately,
yeah.
but
You're
I
just
play
you're
around.
just
I
holding
wrestle.
him. That's all you're doing. You're
Yeah,
putting him in a
I
hold.
just I
Yeah.
just wrestle around with him, and I think that's something you can do with dogs. Honestly, there's
Oh
just
yeah. I mean, I do it with Diego on the bed all the time. I'm like, nope, you're trapped, and he's like, and he's trying to get out of it, and it's just.
no, no.
Yeah, it's like no, no. Yeah, man. But I mean, like I grew up primarily with dogs. I think you and I both kind of did that. I know you guys have cats out the wazoo, compared to your dogs. I
Yeah,
don't even have a cat, and here's the thing: with an apartment, I really don't want to have a cat. I think like if I have a house, that's different. I could kind of stand having a cat in a house, Not an apartment, man, because there's so many different ways they can get out. And in an apartment, they can find so many different places to hide. Whereas with a house, yeah, obviously if they get out of the fence or they go out through the front door, that's different. Obviously, yeah, they have infinitely more spaces to hide in, and that's a little bit more scary. But I think with a house, they have more space to do whatever it is they want to do. They have multiple hiding places within the house, that kind of
Yeah.
element. But whereas an apartment, there's only so many places they can go, and the problem also becomes where are you going to put their litter box, because that in and of itself in an apartment is going to be a huge issue. I mean, I know plenty of people that do it. It's just I'm like, I don't want my house to smell like cat piss. I'm sorry, I just
Yeah.
don't, And that's one of the most like intoxicating odors is cat feces and cat piss. I can't stand it. I lived in a house. Obviously, whenever I moved out, I went with roommates, and they had cats, and luckily we were always in a big enough space. It wasn't an issue until you went into the master bedroom, and that was the biggest problem because that's where they kept the cat litter, and that just their whole closet smelled of cat, and I just and it would just reek the rest of the room and I make it sound like it's over exaggerating. It's just like you eventually go nose blind to it, but it's just one of those things. It's
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
can't live with that.
It's overbearing.
It
It's
is,
overbearing.
especially it's hard with guests too. If you have guests over and they're not used to it, they're like you're gonna probably run the risk of especially it's just one of those things. And plus, cat allergies are notorious. Don't get me wrong, dog allergies are too. But I'm like, I'd rather have a dog and make you sneeze than have a cat and make you fucking get
Yeah.
your eyes puffy and shit.
Yeah.
And plus, I get it. It's different with cats. Like, there's gonna be nice cats. There's gonna be asshole cats. My experience with cats is they're very standoffish, and it's just kind of one of those things. I feel like cats hold a grudge. So if you do one wrong thing, they're gonna hold it over you for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
and or for the rest of their life, I guess, because they technically live a little longer, or they live a little less longer than most people. But yeah, I mean, like I like cats. I'm cool with cats. Like I'm just much more of a dog person. And anybody that says, "Ooh, I hate dogs," I'm a much more of a cat person. It's like, okay, I don't ever say I hate cats. I say I can stand cats. I like cats, but I'm much more of a dog person. But I've never really seen that many, you know, like cat lovers that say, "Oh yeah, no, I like dogs. I know they exist, but I'm just saying like usually when I think of a cat lover, they're more like black and white. They're it's like either you like cats or you don't like cats. Fuck off."
Yeah.
And it's like, why are we doing this? That kind of element of it. It's that separation aspect of it, and I don't like it. Plus I get
Yeah.
it. Cats are more self-sufficient. I understand that element of it as well, but cats are assholes. You don't
They
feed them
can
their
be
fancy
definitely.
yeah, you don't feed them their fancy feast. You have a nice glass vase over there, glass vase on your counter. Oh, oh, would you look at that? Oh, no, it just shattered. Damn, I guess you should have fed me my fancy feast 30 seconds earlier, huh? And it's like, what the and you can't hit a cat, It's like
Yeah. Well, you
I
can't.
mean, you can,
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah.
yeah, you can,
It's
but
not a
it's
good
like
idea.
it's
You're
not a good
supposed.
idea, and on top of that, it's going to be incredibly hard. Whereas, like,
It's gonna be
don't get
painful too.
it's going to be painful. Yeah, there's that element to it too. But yeah, it's just like and plus they scurry away anyways. They know, like the moment you give them a bad glance, either they will stand there and be like, "What the fuck you gonna do?" or they just run off. And it's yeah, but I mean, I understand it why people like cats. I get it. They are very, very, very self sufficient.
Yeah.
They're one of the easier of the furry friends to take care of, which is why I always advocated. I'm like, well, I think a fox would be kind of cool because I've heard from people that like own foxes or at least know of people that own foxes. They they're a lot like a cat and a dog had a kid, that kind of thing. They're very they got like the sneakiness and the kind of almost self sufficiency as a cat, but they're much more in personality lines with a dog.
Right.
Yeah,
And
they
so
do love
then
to
here
play
are
and everything.
here are a few questions
Go
that
for it.
I have come up with for this podcast. This this section right here. So,
Okay.
what factors do you think someone should consider before getting a pet?
Like any type of pet.
Just any
Uh,
pet.
yeah, any pet. I would say whenever it comes to any type of furry friend on four legs, whether it be a dog or a cat, find out if you're allergic, because yes, even if you are allergic, theoretically most people are going to be allergic to it if they're not used to it. Just stock up on Benadryl and give it a few months and you'll be fine. You'll get used to it. um like my roommate that had it, that element, I think that's it. If you're getting a scaly friend, obviously make sure that you are willing to drop like 300 fucking plus bucks on the pet immediately to make sure that they're okay. Those bulbs do go out, and make sure that and they also are like anywhere from $15 to $30 for a basking bulb sometimes. Um, that's just on the lizards or the reptile kind of side of things. Like turtles are kind
Yeah.
of a little bit more different. I did have turtles actually as a kid. At one point, they were little snappers. Those fucking assholes. Here, whoo, yeah. As a kid, you're like, oh, I want to pet the turtle. It's like, no, the fuck you don't. Not that one. That will bite your finger off. Just. So I would say ultimately, as far as like owning pets, is just know it's a responsibility. One of the easiest pets to take care of in the world is a fish. If you've never raised a fish, good luck with a dog, or if you've never been around dogs or cats or anything. Like, obviously, go with what you know. If you know nothing, go with a fish. Yeah, it screams sad and lonely, but they're easy to take care of. If you can take care of a fish, I'm willing to bet money you can maybe take care of a dog. So, and another big
Some of
factor
the
I
fish
would,
first.
yeah, start with the fish. Another big factor is know how much space you have. Don't go out and get a Great Dane when you live in a fucking broom closet of an apartment. That's not a good idea. You're gonna run out of room. Trust me. Hell, even in this apartment, it's starting to get a little cramped with two dogs. So that's just kind of the idea. And I say a little. It's not unlivable. If we got another dog, yes, it probably would be. We'd have dog beds everywhere. So from that element, yes, I would say make sure that the big things are make sure you know what you know. Do your research is a big thing as well. Uh, Make sure you have enough space or you have the means to take care of an animal. I had a roommate that had a bird. We had to change every single pot and pan because the filament, or if it's like a non-stick, if it's not a particular rating, there's something on it whenever it heats up. It's completely passable to humans, but it's completely toxic to birds. They're very what's the word I'm looking for here? They are very susceptible to any kind of fumes. So like candles is the same thing with bearded dragons actually. Bearded dragons, not the pot thing, but you can't really light a candle and blow it out in front in him with him in here. Same thing with like any aerosol type of spray, unless it is like natural. Like it's naturally citrus or whatever. Don't do that because they have very susceptible lungs and they're notorious for getting lung infections and everything. Actually, technically, he is my second bearded dragon. My first one I got technically had a lung infection, but did not show signs until I got him. So he
Yeah.
died not 2 days later. So he is technically Alduin 2.0 because I only had one for 3 days. So I consider him the original. Um, so yeah, I would say
Yeah.
just definitely do your research. Make sure you have the means to take care of an animal. Obviously, save up the money for it. Even if you're going to a shelter, and I highly recommend shelters. I highly recommend getting older dogs, especially if you're wanting to get into the realm of dogs by yourself. Get an older dog. Not only are they significantly cheaper, they're less likely to damage any of your stuff, and they like most places they're gonna look at you a little bit more fondly. When we got Rose and Diego, we got them both from the same place. They loved us for that because we got some of the biggest sweethearts they ever had, and most of their dogs were like 5 years or younger. So I get it's tempting to get a puppy because it's gonna last longer, but I'm telling you, you will get just as much of a connection with an older dog than you think.
Right.
What
So
about you?
basically, just everything that you've summed up.
Yeah,
Basically, will pets even accommodate your lifestyle? Are you allergic to pets? What kind of pets are you allergic to?
exactly.
And if you're not really even sure what kind of pet you want. But
Exactly.
sometimes there are some furry friends that we like, but we can't get close to them because despite the fact that they are furry and that we love them, uh, our body just
Everybody
doesn't
wants
react
a
to
pet squirrel, or sorry, everybody wants a pet squirrel until they get a pet squirrel.
that.
I'm telling you, as tempting
Yeah,
as it is, don't do it. Don't
yeah.
do it unless you
This
know.
the second part, once you've decided what pet you basically want,
Hmm.
do your due diligence.
Exactly.
Basically, how do you take care of that pet? And are you in are it that can your lifestyle accommodate for the responsibility of taking care of it? And then comes after you've done your due diligence and research, basically, you know, uh, figure out, how much money will it cost, and
Right.
budget for, that pet being integrated into your lifestyle. So,
Yes. I would
yeah,
argue if you have a job that like lets you kind of get off a little early, or you at least still have the energy and everything, and you feel like you're ready for a puppy, then that's fine. Go ahead, a puppy or a kitten or whatever. Just know that puppies, especially depending on the breed, are going to be inherently difficult to train. And I would highly recommend spending as much time as you can with them. Like, obviously, if you're going to spend 8 hours a day without them, then yes, they will eventually, most breeds will get used to that. But um, again, it's just you gotta accommodate the lifestyle for it. That's why we didn't get puppies. Now we at least know that if we are going to get a puppy, we're going to have to wait till the summer, because at least my fiance will be here because she's a school teacher.
right.
Yeah.
And then the next question is, well, we all like to have pets.
Mm-hmm.
How can pet ownership positively impact your mental health and well-being?
Well, that's honestly a good question. Don't get me wrong. Uh, Diego pisses everywhere. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about male dogs. They just love peeing everywhere. Um, it's like I don't even see him drink that much water. So I'm like, where are you getting this from? Do you have like a separate fucking piss tank in your system? Like, what is this? From that, yes, obviously, any type of animal is going to be like a child. So from that element, I would say don't even think about having a kid unless you've at least owned one or two animals beforehand, because that will get you ready, sort of.
Yeah,
So I would argue, yeah, it does help your mental health if you're in a bad spot. Obviously, an animal that can comfort you, that uh, if you're in that bad mental state, like if I've ever had a bad day, I have a fiance, so at least there's that. Even if we didn't have dogs, but the dogs, they can kind of sense whenever you're having a bad day. If they know you, you kind of give out this pheromone like, oh, I'm in a bad mood. Whether it be anger or whether it be sadness, like, or if you're having an anxiety attack, that kind of thing. And these dogs will sense that on you, and they typically tend to come up to you very calm, very or they're like try to tell you, hey, let's go play, let's go do something else, or they're just there to get pets. And petting a dog will release so many different endorphins that will make you feel so much better. If I've ever had a bad day, I just go and pet the dogs, and that typically
yeah,
tends to make me feel better, genuinely.
yeah. I think there were scientific studies on that too. Especially,
Yes.
I know that there were studies on cats purring,
Yeah,
making
cat
people
purring
feel
can
better,
make
just
people
calming
feel a
them
lot
down.
better,
Yeah,
especially because they vibrate whenever they do that. So if they rest on you and purr, it like on your chest, especially I've seen people that they have emotional support cats or whatever, and they will actually, if they feel that you're anxious and everything, they will actually sit on your chest and like kind of do that little lie down thing, and they will purr, and it actually calms people down.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yes, when it comes to those two, they are definitely more, they are more calming. Would I recommend getting an emotional support bearded dragon?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, yes, 100%. No, no, I really wouldn't. I mean, if you're a bearded dragon, honest to God, it feels that comforting to you, then fuck it, go for it. I would recommend, like if you are looking into getting your own pet and you have a small space, getting a bearded dragon is not a bad idea. They are very easy to take care of. Um, you don't have to. It sounds bad, but you don't really have to feed them all that often. They can survive quite a long time. I usually feed him once or twice a week, and his food lasts him 3 or 4 days. So it kind of balances itself out. And anytime I cook, if I have excess bell peppers, boom, goes to the bearded dragon. If I have excess kale leaves, boom, goes to the bearded dragon. That kind of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, I mean, it is just one of those things. It's like I would argue the bearded dragon is a little easier to take care of than dogs because I don't got to take them out for a walk. But yeah, I mean, it's cool to have them. Every now and then, if we continue this, you'll probably see Alduin on my chest. I'll just be stroking him, and then he'll be running around. Whatever. He may eventually fall off my chair. I don't know. It just
Yeah.
depends. So
Honestly, you have a bearded dragon as an emotional support animal. You could say officially that you have a relationship with the dragon. You know,
yeah, yeah. There you go.
you've got a
That is
dragon on
kind of a
your
cool
like
thing.
Shrek, like the
Yeah.
movie Shrek. You got Donkey and the Dragon.
Yeah, but don't
Yeah.
try to screw your bearded dragon. Let's be perfectly
Okay,
honest
yeah,
there.
that's wrong. But
That
you get
yeah,
hey, don't
yeah.
mess with me. I've got a dragon who breathes fire. Oh my goodness,
No,
just
he'll
had
just like flick his sticky tongue at you like you're a bug. He does eat the hell out of watermelon though. I'll give him that.
what what are the most important aspects of pet care that often get overlooked?
Believe it or not, attending to their diet. I would say, most people are like, oh, I can just feed my dog, just kibble. And yeah, a dog will eat that. Don't get me wrong. A dog will eat kibble. Dogs will eat anything, honestly. But when it ultimately comes down to it, that what we do with our dogs is we do a combination of dry kibble that is meant for 7-year plus dogs, and we also give them a scoop of wet food. So we mix that together, and then of course we also have these multivitamin like 11-in-1 gummies. They're called gummies. They're really like little treats. We feed that to them twice a day, and then we also with that we give them an antibiotic, or not antibiotic, but it's like a gut health. It's the same brand of the same gummies, right? But it's primarily for gut health.
Yeah,
And then at night, what we do is and this helps their coats actually, and you can do this with dogs and cats. Is we have this salmon oil that we put in their food, and they love it. They adore it. It makes it smell like fish. They feel like they're eating, actual fish, and it actually helps their coats. It helps with shedding to some degree. Obviously with Diego, that's a different fucking story. Um, so yeah, I mean, it helps with shedding to some degree. It helps them have like a healthier, brighter coat. And there's shampoos that will do that too. And I get it. It does get expensive. I understand, but we only feed them twice a day. Hell, I grew up in a household. They got fed, yeah, about twice a day, maybe once a day if they were, on a restricted diet from the vet. But I would also say another thing that gets overlooked is vet bills. Holy shit, the vet bills. I mean, like, just thank God for pet insurance. I mean, if we didn't have that, I think we would have spent like over $1,000 on Rosie within the first 2 months. I mean,
I
it's
was actually
insane. Yeah.
I was actually about to get into that because I'm like, I know you've got some experience with the vet bills and the pet insurance.
Yeah.
Tell me how important that is to
Oh
having
my
pet
gosh.
insurance.
So pet insurance, that would be more of a question for my fiance. That's not something I necessarily take care of. I'm just the poor schmuck that has to take the damn animals to the vet sometimes. Now and that's just for the dogs. We don't have anything for the lizard. The lizard doesn't really need to go all that often. I mean, unless he's portraying or exhibiting like really bad habits or really bad signs. I'm not gonna take him to the vet. Like I remember,
Right.
I remember the first time I ever took him to the vet, and it was just because I needed him to check up. Luckily, that's whenever I found out that hey, I needed to switch his diet because I was feeding him primarily bugs, and he actually got to a healthy enough weight within like 6 months. When typically, whenever they're a year, you need to flip their diet from mostly protein based to mostly veggie based. And so, if I had not gone to the vet, I would have still been feeding him protein, and he loves it. Don't get me wrong, but the I told the vet, I'm like, well, I looked into it. They say usually within about a year. He's like, look at the fucking thing. He's ready. He's a full size. He's basically the size and weight of an adult. He's just not like
Yeah.
fully there. He's not the full size, but he's the weight of an adult. He's like, you need to switch his diet. I said, okay. So then at that point, I switched his diet to where he
Yeah.
mostly got veggies, and I tried to feed him bugs maybe once every few weeks or so. And I'm still new to the idea of like raising a bearded dragon. As far as like animals, like dogs and cats, I'm not that new to it. I like I said earlier, I grew up around animals like that. I never really had like lizards or anything like that. But I did my fair share of research into this, and there's still stuff that I learned. Like you can do all the research in the world on an animal, and they're still gonna throw you a curveball.
Yeah.
So
Of course.
yeah, I
Listen,
had to
life
get him
is
X-rays.
unpredictable.
Hey, I had to get him
Yeah.
X-rays that first time too, and they're like, yeah, it's gonna cost. I think it was like $70. And luckily, they told me like, oh yeah, he's a little sick. He's got an upper respiratory infection, so we're gonna give you some probiotics and these little drops. And oh my god, that damn lizard. This is when I started referring to him as the scaly bastard. Not only was he expensive, um, this motherfucker, he was hilarious though. Don't get me wrong. Like if you tried to feed him his food or his meds, like which was like a little liquid stuff, and it tasted like chicken, so like obviously he liked it. But
Yeah.
you're trying to do that, and he's like, and then finally you just kind of like shove it in there, and then he's like,
What just happened?
no, he's like,
Yeah.
why do I like this? It just that was Aldwin.
This isn't
and
right.
yeah, he's like, no, it's like this isn't right, but I liked it. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, it literally was the equivalent. And this is gonna sound wrong. It's like the equivalent of that episode of Family Guy where Stewie tried to like hang himself and it only went halfway across his face. It's like, well, I'm not dead, but I do have a boner. So that's a new thing for Stewie. It's like he's like, well, I'm not
Yeah.
dead, but I do like this. So that's
Honestly,
that's a
when,
new
when a,
thing for me.
yeah, there are obviously signs that come with when pets are dealing with sickness or illnesses. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
when this was a while back when there was a time when Winston he had his face was bloated. I forget exactly what it was, but it came from sniffing other dogs. But that was
Hmm.
basically the disease that he got. I forget what it's
Uh,
called though. And just one slight touch would hurt him. I'm like, and he would screech like a witch. Like I'm like,
yeah.
holy
Like
crap,
you
dude! Like
stepped on his paw and
yeah.
pulled his tail, kind of thing.
I'm like, dude, I just touched you. Or like I might have skimmed his face across my leg and he just whimpers. I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay,
That's
this dog
terrifying.
seriously needs, yeah, this dog
He needs to go
needs
to the
help,
vet.
obviously,
Yeah.
yeah. And eventually we got to fix. He doesn't deal with it
That's good.
anymore.
That's
But
good. I was
it
about to
was
say
just,
I touched him last time I was there. I petted him and he didn't seem to care.
yeah,
Just...
yeah. And this was a while back. And I let me look up what the cause or what that was. I forgot what it
yeah.
was. Let me look that up real quick.
Hmm. I mean, back with him, as far as while he's looking that up, as far as Aldwin is concerned, whenever I took him to the vet the first time, they're like, "All right, luckily, because he's sick, we're only going to charge you $60." And he's like, "Normally, if he wasn't, we were going to charge you $100." I'm like, "Okay, thanks for that." The problem was
Yeah.
all I had was $80 in my account, and I didn't get paid for another 2 weeks. So I was like, God damn it! So I didn't expect him to like put me in the hole that much. And then of course they were like, okay, we do want to get X-rays, and that's when I found out his bone density wasn't up to what they wanted, which is a big problem with bearded dragons actually. So if you don't feed them calcium once a week, which granted I don't feed him all that often, so I don't really give him calcium all that often unless I'm giving him his bugs. But I do like a calcium probiotic because I still have a shitload of probiotic left over. I do that kind of mixture, and I coat his bugs with it. So, or his worms or whatever it is I'm feeding him, and that typically tends to help. But I mean, if I hadn't gotten the X-rays, there, he's like, all right, so this is a bearded dragon that I care for. This is the vet talking. This is one that I care for on the left. This is Aldwin. Notice how I can almost see through his bones. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, yeah, you need to bump up his calcium intake. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. So that was a godsend to that degree because they are known for getting like these really bendy bones. So that is kind of a problem. But other than that, I mean, he's perfectly fine. I find it funny that if I turn my head, you can see. So that, funny enough, that was originally supposed to be a water fountain. And I had that in his tank. And I actually had it running and everything. Then I noticed, because I have a bioactive environment, I noticed mushrooms were starting to grow around it, and I'm like, what the hell? There's mushrooms growing. It shouldn't be that humid over there. And lo and behold, that's because it was the water. But I got it there because I wanted him to have like a fresh running water source that he could drink out of, because they can't see still water.
Yeah.
So I think if I were to ever like make a bigger tank, I would probably go ahead and have that functioning. Though, granted, I would probably buy a different one. That one is busted. The plastic broke. Actually, whenever I first got it from Amazon, it literally showed up broken. Luckily, they gave me a full refund for it, but I'm just like, yeah, I can glue this, make it work. And I did, and then moving it twice.
Well, I found it. It was called edema. It's where dogs get inflammatory stuff, and it's caused by a variety of things. So it could be caused by trauma, it could be caused by disease, it could be caused by
Right.
other things. But we got that resolved in that stuff.
That's
But
good. That's good. Yeah, I
yeah,
imagine it was through antibiotics.
yeah. So on top of that, like even I think one day while he's you know it was given to us that he was dealing with edema, I
Yeah.
accidentally gave him the cat food and he did not react to it well. Like I'm like, oh, so
Yeah.
yeah, but just the importance of taking your dogs to cats and animals to the vet, having pet
Yeah.
insurance is really good.
It is. It's a
Um,
godsend because it helps you. You're only paying $60 instead of 150. That kind of deal.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean it is good. It's just when it comes to reptiles, it's harder to find pet insurance through like the typical means. There's gonna be some off-brand, or not off-brand, but like random thing you've never heard of, that kind of thing. There's gonna be those, but other than that,
yeah,
and it's fine. I don't take him to the vet all that often, anyways. I don't really feel the need to. I don't feel the need to do a yearly checkup on a bearded dragon that just kind of chills in his cage. Don't get me wrong. I plan on getting him a builder. Planning on building him a bigger cage with my buddy, my co-host Resman over here. Whenever we get a chance on that end, because I've looked into it. Uh, just need to get the plexiglass. Plexiglass.
yeah.
That's all I need. And that shit costs like $60 a sheet. So we'll see how
Depends
that
on
goes.
thickness,
Yeah.
length, all that stuff. But
There's a lot of
how
things
can
that depend on thickness. Speaking of which, no, I'm kidding.
yeah, euphemism there, everyone.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Thanks for pointing it out.
how can
It's awesome.
pet owners create a safe environment at home, particularly for pets that might be prone to accidents or illnesses?
So, prone to accidents or illnesses, I would say try to make sure you don't have any valuables on an area that could get knocked off. Obviously, like I understand people have their valuable shelves or they have their valuable areas. Just know that if a dog is prone to accidents, are you talking like bathroom accidents, or are you just talking about accidents in general?
Just in general,
Just in general. So,
accidents or illnesses, really anything that falls under the category of, man, it was not supposed to happen, but it happened, uh,
yeah, so
and it was
with
preventable.
pets, it's the same thing with kids. Stuff's gonna happen. Shit will happen. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. That's just life. In life, there's going
Yeah,
to be shit that you could prepare all your life for everything, and there's still
yeah,
going to be something you just never thought of. So with that element, I would argue, it, do your research. If it's prone to illnesses, do your research. Obviously, try your best to make sure that you can maintain a safe environment for them. um like perfect example, my former roommate with a bird. He has a dog on top of that, a little puppy. And the bird, that fucking feathered asshole, um he's a fine bird. He was really bitey. That was my only problem with him. I'm like, I just want to pet you, and you're biting my fucking fingers.
he didn't
Fucking
let you
dick.
pet you.
Yeah,
He didn't let you.
exactly. Or like I would like try to get him to where he would stand on my finger or whatever, or like on my shoulder,
And he just nipped
and
your finger, didn't he?
he
He
would nip my finger
nipped at
unless
your.
unless my roommate was there. Um, no, he's a fine bird. And the only other thing that was annoying is he would not stop squawking if he was in his cage. If he got excited, he would start squawking every day, and it just. But anyway, so with that, he looked into these birds, and everything, and like he changed a lot of how he did things. Like he rearranged his room so he could put the bird cage in there. He made sure that he got us new pots and pans to cook with, Either we could cook with stainless steel or we could cook with these new pans that he got because he got them a new pan set. And he's like, hey, so long as I'm here, you can use these, or please use these, or use my stainless steel stuff because these won't, kill my bird. Please refrain from using candles because that will kill my bird. That kind of element. And,
Yeah.
uh, you know, it it did annoy me, and I will full on admit that it did annoy the shit out of me because I'm like, I think he's being a little too overprotective of the bird. Um, and he brought up a good point. He's like, well, you're overprotective of your lizard, and
That makes sense,
it makes sense. And I mean, he argued it to a very good degree, and I just felt like an ass. So to that degree, and we're past it. It makes it seem like it was all that recent. It really wasn't. This was over a year ago, but it is one of those things. It's like, okay, I get it. I understand. You're going to be protective of whatever animal you have, whether it's a fish, whether it's a bearded dragon, whether it's a dog, a cat, a bird. That kind of element.
Yeah.
So from that, like I completely understand it. I get it. I understand to that degree of like you can be overtly cautious, but tangent aside, just the main thing, it's going to go back to like the first question. You got to do your research. You got to make sure that you're okay with it. And I mean, you could be okay with it in the time being and completely change your mind, but at that point it's too little too late. So from that element, it's like you're just going to have to change your lifestyle. Unfortunately, it's going to have to either fit in with your lifestyle or you're going to have to change. And a lot of people can't handle that. There's a reason why pounds are so overfilled. Hell, you could argue the same thing for adoption as well. There's a reason why, it's like they want to have all the fun but none of the responsibility of owning these animals. Or same thing with kids. They want to have all the fun of making a kid, but they don't want to own a kid. That kind of thing. Or they don't own a kid. Good God. Oh my God, that was the wrong way to say that. Own a kid. Yeah. Yeah. No, of course, like, they want to have all the fun of having a kid, but none of the responsibility. Yeah. It's the same concept. So
child slavery is definitely a prevailing subject amongst today's society.
Ask the Temu factories. We'll see where we go.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, but from that, I mean, it's literally it's just gonna be a situation of either it fits your lifestyle, you can adapt your lifestyle to fit it, or it just doesn't work. And as much as it sucks, that's ultimately what comes down to for some people. Yeah. I would argue part of the reason why pit bulls have such a bad rep is because, the people that primarily got them, they're like, oh, these are really good fighting dogs. And to that element, here's the thing. I don't condone any kind of animal fighting.
Right.
And I used to joke around. Oh yeah, right. I used to joke around saying like, oh, like cockfighting. Cockfighting's fine because at least you can illegal. Eat the loser. It is illegal. It's illegal. Yeah, I was like, I used to joke that. I was like, oh yeah, cockfighting's fine because at least then you could eat the loser. And I'm like, obviously I don't mean that. It's like those animals are horribly treated. They're starved and all this other stuff. You wouldn't get much meat off the cocks, but off the roosters. So cockfighting. Obviously, no, I don't condone it in any way, shape, or form. Same thing with dogfighting. Dogfighting in particular. Like, I could probably look aside cockfighting just because I'm like, it's a chicken. You know how many fucking chickens there are? Like roosters, same thing. It's like, I get it. All life is sacred, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, somebody said, oh, yeah, I'm starting a new thing. I'm starting pig fighting. I'm like, can I eat the loser? Just I'd like some bacon and ham, that kind of thing. Like hell, some sausage would be nice. Like I don't even know how the hell you would do cow fighting. Like there, and there's people that argue against not bullfighting. Bullfighting, it's different. It's all performative now. It used to actually be you killed the bull. Like there's a reason they had blades on their fucking side. Like every time they went and did the thing, they would hold it off of one hand and stab the damn animal. Like they would literally kill them. And now it's just all performative and whatever. I'm sure in some parts of the world they still kill them. My point being, pit bulls have a very bad rep because of dog fighters and people that owned them treated them like shit. And of course the animals just lash out. Do you know what the reputation of pit bulls used to be before they had the reputation they have today? They were nanny dogs. They were considered one of the best dogs you could have around your kid because they treated everyone like family and they were protective. They are some of
Right.
the sweetest, most delicate little dogs. And the fact that assholes out there use them for fighting and use them for guard, like I get using them for guard dogs. I completely wholeheartedly understand it. It's the same concept as Rottweilers. It's the same concept as pit
It's like owning a
terriers.
wolf. It's like owning a it's like
Yeah, yeah,
taming a wolf basically. But again,
yeah,
you have these people that, I mean, this happens everywhere. You have these people that basically ruin it for everyone, and then
yeah,
now that the difference between ruining it for everyone on social media, and you see it ruined for everyone on with animals, is that you see the development of these animals now gradually become more and more aggressive against other humans. Well, what did you expect? You
yeah.
treated them like trash, and
It's
guess
like,
what's going to happen?
what?
You're not.
I
I
beat the
mean,
puppy until became a mean dog, and then now the mean dog is biting my arm off.
the
However, could this happen? It's like,
yeah,
motherfucker, you're that short sighted.
yeah.
And
So
another thing that does go against pit bulls. Sorry, I hate to interrupt you, but like another thing, there is some confusion. Pit bulls and pit terriers look very similar. Pit terriers are more aggressive. Pit bulls are more dominant, or they're more submissive. They're more sweet. They will fight if they have to, but pit bulls are very sweet. Pit
right,
terriers do tend to have an aggressiveness.
right,
It's the same thing with like a lot of German shepherds tend to be very aggressive. They only have one person that they really like, or they have a couple of people that they like. I'm
yeah,
trying to think of another dog. There's other dogs. Chow chows tend to be very, very aggressive regardless. There are breeds that are naturally aggressive, and that's just how they were bred. Malinois tend to be inherently aggressive. There's a reason why they're used as police and military dogs. Same thing with because they're very close to German shepherds, but they're like the German shepherds on fucking crack and PCP. Like they are. Not to say they aren't good dogs. They are. It's just you think owning a German shepherd is tough. Try owning a fucking Malinois. Holy shit. But yeah. So from that
yeah,
element, that was the other thing I wanted to bring
yeah.
up.
I was just trying to illustrate the point that this happens even in society today. If you're a human, you're treated like trash. You're gonna fight back eventually, and your
Yeah.
future generations will eventually learn to fight back and be more
Yeah.
aggressive, and that's what you see in some animals. So when people make the judge animals for being aggressive, yeah, there might be some breeds out there that aren't necessarily, they haven't been bred to be fully you know integrated into human society, but just understand that there are breeds out there that are aggressive because humans just, there are people who treat them like trash. That's
Well, and
very
another
simple.
thing is I think dogs ultimately they do have the ability to sense whether or not you're a good or a bad person. I've had random dogs don't even know me. They'll growl at me and just be like, "Hey, I don't know you, back off." But if you just show like I'm not here to harm you, obviously this is with all animals, by the way. Never do an over the hand. Never have a palm down, top of your hand up. Always do a palm open because this is seen as aggressive. This is seen, and this is with lizards. This is with dogs, chimps, everything. Like if you do this, this typically tends to be, or like hell, even a sideways thing, like that's typically not bad. Like if you're letting a dog sniff you, this is fine, but if you're doing this, they see that as aggressive. So that's
Because
just a PSA thing.
that's a bear palm, basically. That's a bear palm,
Yes.
like
Whereas
that.
this is different. This is different. This is different.
Yeah,
Right.
the under palm or the side, the
Correct.
shaking the hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
So it's that kind of deal. Um, I mean, this extends past, a perfect example. I brought this up to many of people that know me. Speaking of reptiles, there are snake owners, and more power to you. I grew up fearing snakes. I don't mind looking at snakes. I don't want to touch one. I'm okay with my bearded dragon. That's about as scaly as I'm good to go. You know, I don't really want to deal with snakes, right? But there are people that they get the constrictors, and constrictors can grow pretty damn big. So there is a story. I forget where this lady was. I forget how old she was. I just remember what the snake was, and I remember what the story was. I don't remember the name of the snake, but it's those yellow and white spotted constrictors. Because constrictors are going to be typically the only types of snake you're going to see as people having as pets. So a lady, And I don't know what compelled her to do this. She trusted that snake so much that she let it sleep in her bed. And
Yeah.
the snakes start getting larger and larger and larger and larger over like the span of a few weeks. And she took it to the vet. She's like, "Hey, is there something wrong with my snake? It's been getting very very large over the past week or a couple weeks." And of course, they ask the typical questions like, "Oh, what have you been feeding it a lot more? Has it been hungry? It could just has it been shedding?" It's like, no, it's not really shedding. It's not hungry. I feed it, maybe once a month, that kind of deal, because I think that's what you're typically supposed to do with snakes. You don't feed it very often because they digest incredibly slowly. Obviously, depending on the size of the snake. And he goes, "Okay, is there anything else that you would do? Do you like let it sleep in its cage? Do you turn off its light? Like what are you doing with it?" She's like, "Oh, I don't let it sleep in my cage, or let it sleep in its cage." And he's like, "Where do you let it sleep then?" Right? And she goes, "Oh, I let it sleep on my bed." And he's like, he gives, I assume it's a he. I don't know. Like the vet gives this big-eyed, like, "What the fuck did you just say?" look, and says, "Yeah, stop doing that." And she goes, "Oh, well, why? The snake loves me. It trusts me." It's like, the snake is sizing you up to see if it can eat you. That's what your
Okay.
snake has been doing. And ever since I heard that story at like 8 years old. I've never forgotten it. It's ultimately what kind of turned me off from snakes, very very for a very very long time.
Yeah.
And
Honestly,
so
I don't understand the idea of owning a snake, and nothing against people who own snakes as pets. It's just
I had a coworker
like,
that did, and he's like, it's actually kind of cool. It's kind of a cool thing. It'll when they're little ball pythons, they don't get very big. I think the largest they'll get is like maybe 5 feet, not even 5 feet, like 2 or 3 feet long. They don't
yeah,
really get that big, versus that other type of python. Those pythons get
yeah,
huge, but
right.
it's
I
like,
just, yeah,
yeah, he's like, it's
maybe like
cool.
a,
It'll wrap around you. You can take it anywhere. It's not gonna hurt you. Because like that was another thing. I'm like, it's a constrictor. The reason why it wraps around things is so it can, he's like, "Oh no, it does that so it can hang on." And he's like, like the worst I ever had was it did try to like bite my finger because it thought it was something that it wasn't. He's like, "But other
yeah,
than that, it's fine, And typically they get off of you whenever they're bored or they want to go somewhere else. So he's like, they never really went around my neck. He's like, anytime it went around my neck, it looked like a loose chain versus around my neck.
yeah.
So he's like, it's just kind of a cool pet to have.
It,
It you don't feed it very
they're,
often.
yeah, there are obviously snakes out there that would make for a better pet than other snakes. Just, snakes as
Most
just a
constrictors,
general,
yeah,
yeah, snakes as a general like pet like
it's
concept
one of
sort
the
of thing.
weirder
It's like,
ones. Yeah,
yeah, it's like, what are you doing?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what, do you have like a vendetta against you, or are you trying to train the snake to kill somebody? What's going on? You hate
Nah.
humanity? I'm
So
kidding,
with
obviously, but
I get that, yeah. And I mean, like, I did my research on it because I'm like, why do people like snakes? And the reason why ball pythons and other types of pythons are typically like very okay to have is they're very submissive. They don't really do much unless you're food. And so, like ball pythons in particular, they don't get very big. They can, but they don't get that big. And so they typically tend to be very easy to maintain. They can be seen as like friendly. They like to crawl around you or like slither around you and all this other stuff.
yeah,
So like I can understand where somebody can make the argument. It's just one of those things. I grew up fearing snakes. I just don't like snakes. I'm okay with
right,
lizards. I just don't like. I'll look at a snake. Like if somebody's got a
yeah,
snake, I'll be like, "Oh, that's cool. Keep it the fuck away from me." But that's cool. It's like,
yeah. I have a friend down in California who owns a tarantula. It's one of those things where I'm like, dude, you own a tarantula? Like, I've never told him this, but I don't know. I have this. I don't understand it. I mean, obviously, but I guess there could be the perception, and maybe I would really have to ask someone who owns a snake, like, why you like what like subconsciously what goes on in your mind when you own a snake. It might just be like a power play. I don't know, because there are cultures out there that straight up like sleep with snakes. Like that's their normal. Like I
yeah,
know, like in somewhere in India, where it's India or Africa, they're like yeah, we sleep with snakes. Like that's just our thing, you know. Because and snakes, but throughout the world, snakes are perceived as like an
Bad,
aggressive, yeah,
evil,
like
that kind
all
of thing.
throughout the world.
Yeah,
That's the thing. There are even churches that have. I've never been to a church like this. I would never go to a church like
they're in
this.
the deep south. I know exactly where you're going with it.
They have snakes where they slither around, and if they bite you, apparently you're in sin or whatever. I'm just like, dude, that's not. Dude, no,
Oh no, that's not
no.
where you're going with. I thought you were talking about the slain by the spirit churches. There are churches that say, like if I believe in God, this snake could bite, and it's like a rattlesnake. It's like this snake could bite me and I won't die. The venom will just pour out of me, and it's
That's
like
not true.
I'm
Okay,
good,
you're playing with fire. You're playing with fire, bro.
Yeah. Oh, and they typically tend to
It's
have people
it's the
that
next
like
level.
they got to go to the hospital. Like they, I think usually with most
Yeah,
sermons, if they're going to involve snakes, like they are like legally required to have an ambulance on standby.
yeah.
So it's like,
Required
oh Jesus.
resuscitation. It's
Yeah.
or required resuscitation. It's not an N R,
Yeah.
it's an RR
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
It's an RR.
But
Yeah.
honestly, it's like, bro, your faith is so massive, dude. Your faith is so much stronger than mine. You're willing to go to the hospital for it. I'm just like,
I'm
no,
good,
that's not
bro.
even a
I'm
feeling I
good.
want to
Yeah.
entertain.
Uh,
So,
uh, and I mean,
it,
obviously, that's not even like bashing on religion. That's just bashing on crazy people. That's all it really is.
especially on
Uh,
people who have snakes and are willing to test their faith with them. That's
yeah.
it. We're not even bashing it. We're
The
just amazed
yeah,
by it.
and
We're
what's
amazed.
funny is, and I don't bring up Family Guy all that often, but it's just for whatever reason with this episode. There was that one where it's like, yeah, at least we're not crazy. I forget what the cutaway line was, but it's like this guy goes, "If I believe in Jesus hard enough, I will not die.
Oh
The
yeah, I
snake could
remember
bite me,
that.
and I will not die." And then it goes to the perspective of the snake, and it's like, "If I believe in snake Jesus hard enough, this guy will die." And then it cuts to a tree. It's like, "If I believe in tree Jesus hard enough, they both will die." Lightning strikes, cuts off part of the branches, lands on the fucking guy and the snake, and is like, "Yay! Thank you, Jesus!" And it's like, Jesus Christ.
Oh my, that might be a
Ah.
podcast for another time. Just
Yeah, yeah. I saw that. I'm like, oh my god, that is
Family
funny.
Guy's wild. Family Guy's wild with their
Was
comedy.
wild. I mean,
You're
they're not really that wild anymore. Honestly, they're pretty
well, I
tame.
mean, they did another one on the whole "if I believe in Jesus" sort of thing because there's one where there's a scene where this Middle Eastern guy he was like these two guys broke into his house and this guy was like I think he was like Muslim or something or he didn't believe in God.
Oh
He's
yeah,
like
the Muhammad it was Osama. Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
"I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior," and he gets shot in the
and he
head, and he
gets
ends up in
killed
heaven. He's like,
and he goes like
"Yes." He's like, "Yes."
yeah,
Yeah, I know. That was old
oh
school
my
Family Guy
God.
too.
Yeah,
That
that
was
was wild.
nuts. That
That's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I wish there was more stuff like that, but we just live in a society that's like it. Even there are people who say that not even The Office would make it in today's society because of the kind of humor it has. But
I hear, and just like that, I heard thousands of millennial voices cry out in anguish and agony. Just
no,
he's like, "No,
we
The
will
Office
not.
is the greatest show ever." It's like, okay, look, you can have your show that you love. I would say for me that was, but it's not even one that I watch all that often. It's Firefly. Firefly is great. I mean that's, and again we're getting way off topic, but like Firefly is good. I wholeheartedly love Firefly. Like I love the movie. I love the show. Do I love the creator? Not really. But that's a different story, right? Just The Office. The Office was something I never got into. I never understood the fascination with it. I
Well,
really
I,
didn't.
I'll tell you the fascination with The Office right here. Do you understand the fascination, or are you just like,
I understand it, but I just
uh,
and then it's like, I'm treated like by like hardcore fans, I'm treated like I'm the fucking antichrist when I say I think it's overrated. I really do.
I
Like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I think it's overrated.
right.
It's good, but it's not
I
great.
I have a few friends that never really got into it. I
So
actually
much
have
more
a
about How I
roommate
Met Your
right
Mother
now.
guy. How I Met Your Mother was
Yeah,
hilarious.
it's the Office is a sitcom, and it's all about basically you get the corporate world and the office corporate norms, and
It's an
just
over exaggerated corporate office show. It's like
yeah,
Office
with
Space, but in a TV show sitcom situation.
with except you had this guy that breaks the rules. It's just that humor that
Hmm.
would it's basically you have all this funny humor you obviously can't watch in the corporate office, but that's basically the show.
Yeah,
Anything that you can't say in office at your workplace, you basically have it on a show. I think that's how many people relate to it.
Yeah,
Just
and I guess that makes sense. A lot of millennials did do office jobs, so I get that aspect
yeah,
of it. It's the same thing. Like, I'm a school teacher's kid, right? So, and I'm also getting married to a school teacher. My fiance loves Abbott Elementary, which, if you know anything about teaching,
yeah,
it's really really good. Like, I wholeheartedly love it, and it's that office style humor where it's like there is no laugh track. It's a documentary crew recording the whole thing, and so
yeah.
that's where I'm like, okay, I like that because I know more about that. Whereas the office, it's like, I don't know. It's similar to like how there's certain animes that I'm like terrified to try to get into because I'm like, what if I fucking hate this? And it is like one of the most well renowned things. Like Dragon Ball, I enjoy. I'm terrified to get into One Piece, but
I
that's
think
completely
honestly,
wholeheartedly. It's a
I think
completely
it's
different subject.
I think it's fine so long as you don't voice that opinion because
Yeah, exactly.
because I love you, Christian, but we got to protect the opposition here. Just we got to protect the minority, the
I
victims of society, and you might
I
just become a
guess,
victim. Who
and that's
knows?
fine. I feel like I'm already a victim of society sometimes, anyways.
We
But
all
back
are.
onto pets. You said you had a few more questions, if I remember correctly.
Oh no, I think that was
That was it.
basically it. That
That
sums
was
it
it.
up.
All right.
Yeah,
So long tangent aside, I mean,
yeah.
Dalton, do you agree with my points, or do you have different perspective on those
I mean,
questions?
absolutely. I'd say that there's a lot there.
You know.
And I think going back to your point on, raising a child, I know some people who own some pets, um, to prepare themselves for raising a child. So I know this married couple down in California who owns this like small Chihuahua dog, and they're thinking of having their own child in the future, and that's just their way of preparing for that. And
Yeah.
you know, um,
If you cannot raise a dog, at least in the bare minimum of things, I don't think you should have a child. That's my opinion. If you cannot raise a dog, I don't think you should have a child. Um,
it's definitely hard to see how you can be responsible with a human being if you aren't responsible with the pet. So
exactly. I would argue that
yeah,
is like the great trial period, and like I hate to bash on millennials. I identify more with millennials than anything else, especially my generation. But it, so there are millennials that are wholeheartedly treating the dogs like they're their own children, and I get that aspect of it. I get the appeal. Dogs are so much easier to take care of compared to kids, and they are perpetually like 3 years old, and they don't talk. They bark at you, but they don't talk, right? So I get the appeal of it. I much prefer dogs. Like out of any other animal, I do prefer dogs. If I had a choice and I didn't want to get the bearded dragon, I would have gotten a dog. Whether it be a small dog, a little dog, it didn't matter, right?
yeah,
I'm glad I
but
finally got my
yeah,
my childhood dream of having a German Shepherd. That was nice. I mean, yeah, he's a little older. I would have liked to have raised him from a puppy, but like, yeah, I think I'm very happy about that. From that element of it, and going back to again bashing on millennials. It's not that I don't think anybody should have kids. And it's not that I don't think that, oh, if you can take care of a dog, you can immediately take care of a kid. No, they're obviously different. They're different strokes, right? There's different strokes for different folks. And of course, those are completely two different animals. Not only from a literal standpoint, but from a metaphorical standpoint. Those are completely two different types of raising and everything
yeah,
else.
two different
So,
beings we're
two
taking
different
care
beings.
of. Yeah,
Exactly. And from that element, but I do agree, if you can handle a dog, if you can maintain a dog, I think to some degree you can handle having a child.
yeah,
And that's just me personally. I think honestly because I can handle these dogs. And yes, I get it, they're older. I've dealt with puppies before too, and puppies are kind of a pain in the ass. Um, I've dealt with those, right? So I get that element of it. But I do feel more or less not like completely ready, because nobody's ever completely ready to have a child unless they've already had a child. If that makes sense. So like I do feel like my dogs have kind of prepared me more or less to at least attempt at taking care of a child. So, from
Yeah.
that element, I do think that honest to God, I do think that animals are a great stepping stone into furthering your life, especially dogs or cats or whatever you want to go for. So, from that element, I think pets are, for anybody that's perpetually lonely. I think having a pet not only helps you get out of that loneliness because you do have a companion, which is why again I would prefer a dog, but a cat is fine. So you do have that companion, right? You have that companionship. You have, at least in dogs, you have that unconditional love. They unconditionally love you. Like even if you're an asshole to them, they still love you deep down, right? They'll still protect you. So, uh, from that element of it, I don't know. I think I think that whenever it comes to dogs, I always felt better having a pet. Anytime I didn't have a pet, um, I didn't feel great. Like there was a solid year I was by myself. I was living with roommates, but like it was different not having a pet. I mean, luckily they had cats, so like I had some type of companionship, but they weren't my cats. So from that element, it was just, I don't know. I felt lonely,
Yeah.
and I get it. You can't immediately move out and go get an animal. Like I get that element of it, but like I think getting an animal afterwards, that genuinely, like, it's different when it's your animal. It's different when it's your pet, when it's that's the thing that you're responsible for. And if it dies, you have nobody to blame but yourself, kind of deal. Like at least if it dies from like starvation or whatever. Obviously, there's freak accidents that do happen. So
Right.
it's completely different, versus if you have a buddy that has an animal, right? Like that's your buddy's animal, sure, and you're gonna feel bad if something happens to it, but like you're not gonna feel as bad as your buddy. Whereas when it's your animal, when it's your dog, when it's your cat, when it's your lizard, I'll admit it. When the first one died, I was devastated because I'm like, oh my god, I tried to take care of it and it died within 3 days.
Yeah.
And luckily, I had support there. Like someone told me, like, look, I don't think it was your fault. I think it was just the animal was sick. Unfortunately, that's what happens. So,
Right.
from that element, I think ultimately everybody should have the right to have an animal. Not everybody deserves one. Let me put it that way.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Now, there's an idea, there's a thought that crossed my mind
Mm-hmm.
a while back when you talked about how millennials treat their pets like children. And I know a few people, as I'm sure I know that you know people that treat their pets like their child. And I actually have a friend who that lady I was talking about who moved to Maine. She has quite
Mm-hmm.
a few cats. I think she has a dog too, if I'm not mistaken, who literally calls her cats like little babies. And I think there's something to that because at also, she isn't a millennial either, but I know that she isn't able to have kids, and so I know that that's sort
Yeah,
of like
and
her go-to
that
sort of
element,
thing.
and
And
that I completely understand, right?
yeah, and
Like that I get. Obviously, there's going to be outliers, right? Like
yeah,
I'm just saying,
but
like when it's the
yeah,
vast majority of a generation that does that, that's a different
yeah.
story.
But I guess this would be a topic for another discussion, which would be that we also see a shift in people getting together. There's also this topic of hookup culture, and
Yeah,
well,
and that can
having
be a
children,
different video and
right?
everything.
And which I do think plays a part into this whole treating your pets sort of like children.
Like
And
that's your own biological child kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
and so I think to that, I think there's something valid in there. There's something
there
going
is
on
something
like
valid in that
culturally,
argument for sure.
right?
Yeah,
And on top of that, I think that there's also a sense of loyalty to pets that humans don't have amongst each other, that people just connect with pets in ways that others don't
right.
with each other. But oh, I was also going somewhere else with that, but I think it's time to close down. I think we had a really great discussion. I think,
Oh yeah, dude, this is a great first episode. I
yeah,
I I would agree with that. Like we definitely talked about a lot of stuff. So, from that element, I mean, I would say, is there anything like any closing argument you want to have? I feel like I
no,
mostly talked throughout this.
yeah. I mean, I'd say, I think me and you both agree with each other, and I mean, not just that. I think this is just some information everyone should know. You know, how do
Oh
you
yeah,
take
yeah,
care of
some
a pet?
general information as far as like
Yeah,
not only taking care of, but making sure that you're prepared to take care of a
yeah,
pet.
and it's kind
You
of
know.
hard to make it hard to make an argument about general information that everyone should know about. But I'd say, you know, um, you know, start talking about the next podcast, the next episode.
Mhm.
I'd say the next episode. What would you say should be about? I have some ideas about what it should be about.
I mean that definitely that millennial topic. Hold on, sorry, I'm trying to fix this light here. Ah, what is the issue? Ay, ay, ay. Okay, that might be it. That might be the angle. Sorry, I'm just kind of
Yeah.
playing around with the light angle here. You'll know whenever you stop using natural daylight, you son of a bitch. Anyways,
I don't know.
but
Natural daylight seems to be
yeah,
quite
it seems to be
persistent for
pretty
me.
pretty good for you. Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm kind of going for more of a streamer setup, obviously. Um, so as far as like a next topic, I do think that there is something that we can kind of like bounce off of from like the element of talking about millennials kind of treating their fur babies as well their child, their kids. Like I understand the importance of having a dog. I understand that some people like dogs more than kids. I completely. My parents told me that since I was fucking 5. Like I like the dogs better than you. That kind of deal, right? So, it just, yeah,
And man, I also had something else to that. Oh yeah, I'd rather have someone. I guess at the end of the day, if they don't have children at the end of the day, and it's just they treat their pets like children, much rather have a pet owner treat them like a freaking billionaire spoiled child than have
yeah.
someone beat them up or mistreat them. So, you
Oh
know,
yeah, I mean, there's definitely that argument to it as well. I agree with that element of it, and again, we can discuss this
yeah,
later on in another episode. But that being said, for anybody that is watching this, let us know what you think. As far as tell us any of your stories whenever it comes to pet ownership. Um, and yeah, I mean, just if you have a topic that you'd like us to talk about, we will be sure to check it out. We'll eventually get to a point where we have like a little email set up that you can send us suggestions and everything.
yeah,
Of course, we're planning on getting a different setup and everything from there as well. For right now, it's probably just going to be Discord calls because that's what this is. But that being said, I think we're good to go ahead and close. This has been Shad and the Resman. I have been Black Shad 56.
the Reese man,
The
DC Reese
Resman.
man. So
DC Resman.
yeah.
Exactly. And we will see you all in the next one.